Hi guys, welcome to my channel and to my Back to Beauty No Buy year. This year I'm concentrating on using my makeup and not buying any. So today's video is a 3 looks with 5 shades, speaking on the Natasha Denona Mini Star Palette. So when I started to think about how I wanted to review this palette for you guys, I thought it would be interesting based on the fact that there are 5 shadows in this palette, 2 mattes and 3 shimmer. I thought it would be interesting to show you how I created 3 very different looks in my opinion. So let's go ahead and talk about the logistics. This palette is $25 and it does have a shelf life of 24 months. There are 5 shades in here. You do have 2 in the creamy matte formula. This is a teak and this is earth. And then you have a duochrome right here, which is called Orion. You have a metallic here called Bellatrix, and then you have one of her chroma crystal formulas, and this is called Cosmo, and that is the one that I do have on my lid today. So you are getting 4 different formulas in this little 5-pan palette. The first shade in the palette, this one right here, is a duochrome called Orion. It has a reddish brown base with a turquoise shift. Not an overly unique shade these days. In the world of makeup, a lot of people are putting out similar shades. Even Wet n Wild has a shade similar to this in their Comfort Zone palette. But this is a really nice formula in terms of this shade. The second shade here is called a teak, whatever that means. It is a really nice warm camel brown. Works nicely as a transition shade or a blending shade, things like that. And then you have this metallic, which is called Bellatrix. And this is just a really beautiful, it's described on the website as a nude metallic. I don't know that I would say that. I would say this is somewhere between gold and champagne. Really beautiful foiled on the lid. And then we have a creamy brown matte, which is described as a dark brown called Earth, and this is absolutely a beautiful matte to work with. I have this blown out all in my crease today. I have a 2 shadow look using these 2 shades, which we'll get into in a minute, but that's Earth. And then the last shade called Cosmo, which is in her chroma crystal formula, is described as a sparkling golden olive, and I do quite agree with that. I think overall Natasha Denona does a really good job describing her shades on the website, specifically on the Sephora website for me. So if you're in the market for a Natasha Denona palette of any size or any price range, I do recommend that you look at the shade descriptions on the Sephora website, because insofar as the 2 palettes that I have reviewed, the shade descriptions were spot on, and I think it will give you a really good picture, especially if you haven't swatched it in store or things like that, which I always recommend you do if you're gonna buy a palette. But if you're ordering it online, I do think the shade descriptions are really spot on. And on that note, let's go ahead and get into the demos. What do I think about this little 5-pan palette? First of all, the packaging is reflective. I really like the packaging on this. It's very, very sturdy. I can't even describe you know, why it feels so sturdy. I mean, this right here is a very thick piece of plastic, and it just closes and is super secure in the packaging. So I do like this. I wouldn't hesitate to travel with it, things like that. However, I did a little makeup math, and I thought that this was kind of interesting, and I wanted to share that with you. So clearly the pans in the Lila palette are a lot bigger than the pans in the Mini Star palette, which got me to thinking, you know, this being $129 and this palette being $25, it got me to wondering, you know, just how it all broke down in terms of basically cost per gram. So in the Lila palette, there is 2.5 grams of product in every pan of shadow, which honestly is a freaking lot of shadow. So in the Lila palette, each pan of shadow has 2.5 grams of product in there. In the Mini Star palette, you get 0.8 grams of product in here in each pan, which is less than 1 gram of product. So I did the math. The Lila palette, because it has 15 shades, has a total of 37.5 grams for $129, whereas the Mini Star palette has 4 grams of product total for $25. When figuring out the price per gram, the Lila palette figures out to be $3.44 per gram of product, whereas the Mini Star palette breaks down to be $6.25 for each pan of shadow, or for each gram of shadow. So just a little makeup math for you there. You're paying almost double per gram in the Mini Star palette than you are in the Lila palette, which may not matter to you if you're only interested in a small little palette like this, or you know, you have 1,000 eyeshadow palettes, therefore the amount of shadow or the cost per gram really doesn't matter to you. That's fine too. I just wanted to give you that information because I found it really interesting. It doesn't sway my opinion either way of either palette. So overall, I love this little Mini Star palette. Once upon a time, I did want the actual Star palette, but upon looking at it and reading the shade descriptions on Sephora, I just felt like there were too many shadows in that large palette that would be redundant in my collection. And so when my hubby took me to Sephora for the first time for my birthday, I saw this little Star palette. I was very attracted, not just to the 3 metallics in here, but also to the mattes. I thought, wow, those 2 mattes are perfectly matched to go with the 3 metallic shades, if you will. So I really love this. I think this would be really easy to reach for on an everyday basis for someone like me. Sometimes grabbing for a 5-pan or a quad or a trio kind of like takes the guesswork out of creating a look, and there are days that I am looking for that. It just kind of simplifies it. I can look at this and be like, bam, 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 those are the shades I want to use. Whereas if I'm trying to get out the door and I open this up, I might be like, what am I doing here? So I do love this little palette. I would consider purchasing other little palettes like this from Natasha Denona. Overall, we're kind of getting ripped off in the price per gram, but I don't really care about that because I do have a large collection. So when I'm purchasing new palettes, I'm looking to not duplicate anything, and I'm looking for smaller, more compact color stories, you know, if not palettes themselves. So question remains, is this the same formula as this? Obviously, I can't speak on all of Natasha Denona's small palettes or large palettes. These are the only ones that I have, but I have heard people talk on YouTube specifically on whether they think this formula is the same as the formula in the larger palette. And insofar as I can tell in my experience with these shadows, I absolutely think these little ones are the same formula as the larger palette that I own. I think the duochrome and the metallic shades are the same consistency. They apply with the same ease. They're easily foiled and they last just as long as the shadows in the Lila palette, as well as the Chroma Crystal shade. This green shimmer is definitely the same formula as this shade, which is also a Chroma Crystals formula in the Lila palette. Like I said, these are the only two that I've tried, but in my experience, they are of the same quality. So yeah, this was my little review of this little palette. I really like this little guy, and I know that I will get some really good use out of it. Honestly, if you had asked me yesterday what my favorite shade in this palette was, I probably would have said Orion, even though I do have this shade in other palettes. But when I actually put this greeny gold shade on my lids today, I fell in love. This is stunning, and I could see pairing it with any other myriad of matte shades to coordinate with it, and it would just make an easy, stunning look. And this was an easy to shadow look. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Holy moly, you can see that I'm wearing cream products today with the lighting. But so I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you missed it, I did review the Lila palette, and that video went up on Monday, so I will go ahead and link that for you in case you missed it, because I did give my opinion on whether I thought it was worth the $129. And if the question bears asking, I absolutely think that this little, what do they call it, a quint when there's 5? Sure, let's go with that. I absolutely think this little quint is worth $25 in my opinion. So there you go. And with that being said, I hope all of your makeup days are absolutely beautiful makeup days, and I will see you in my next video soon.